As Battersea Fun Fair closed at the end of the 1952 season, the temperature in London began to fall.
The weather at that time was usually colder in the winter, and in the Thames Valley, it flowed down the sides of the valley, the cold air, when the ground got cold at night. The cold air converged on the Thames.
Towards the end of November, weather stations began to track a mass of warm air moving from the Gulf Stream towards the city.
Well, you know, we're unlikely to get through any winter without a cold spell, but it just isn't possible to give a forecast for the coming one.
I was a professional meteorologist in the university at that time, so I always kept an eye on the weather system, and I thought, well, this is going to be a bad pea super, and if it stayed for more than a day or two, there would be a great accumulation of smoke.
On Friday, December the 5th, the mass of warm air came to a standstill, creating a lid directly over the city. In the colder streets below, a light mist became thick with coal smoke trapped in the stagnant air.
The next morning we had a call from Sir Bentley Purchase, the St Pancras coroner, saying, "This is a crisis. Our staff are completely overwhelmed and I just want some people non-stop."
You only have so many undertakers. You can't suddenly say, OK, we've got this inrush of dead bodies, let's incorporate a few extra undertakers. I mean, undertakers are undertakers, that's all they do. So if you've got this rush of dead bodies, then the whole thing, you get like a logjam.
Well, it happened to be myself and two of our men, and we spent the next 3 days just going round the back streets. Sometimes the police would be called to break in, sometimes neighbours had got a key, or friends or relatives became worried. But in nearly every case, there's an old person in bed who died gasping for breath, because there's nothing like it, nothing like the smog before or since.
Police found the body of Augustus Curtis in a Bellingham street. When they broke into his house, they found his daughter-in-law about to die in her bed. Undertakers removed 10 bodies from one address in Marylebone.
And we were just shuttling backwards and forwards to the coroner's mortuary. It was an absolute nightmare. I wouldn't like to go through it again. I don't know how many, 50 maybe. I shall never forget it.
Because there were so many people died, you couldn't get the plots dug and bookings, and I suppose people nowadays wouldn't realise that, but you just, there was just nowhere to bury them.
50 victims were brought to Lewisham Mortuary over the weekend.
And when we got to the mortuary, it was unbelievable. It looked like something out of an old-time horror film. And the assistant mortuary keeper said, "You should have come last week," he said, "because we had them standing around the wall." He said there was masses of them.
When all the numbers are added up, there were about 4,000 excess deaths, and the mortality remained elevated for about another 3 weeks. And if you took the whole period, the excess mortality was about 4,000.
4,000 has remained the official total of the dead. But the government's first report, issued 11 months after the disaster, show the death toll as 12,000. The figures revealed the government had overseen a public health disaster as deadly as any Victorian plague. 4 months later, a committee appointed by the health minister subtracted 8,000 deaths from the total by declaring a cut-off point of December the 20th. They said anyone who died after that date was not a victim of the fog.
The day he died was the 30th, so he would have been buried on the next day. The Wednesday would have been the next day, would have been January the 1st. I would think it would have lived on if that fog hadn't have happened. I'm certain of that. I mean, it lasted 4 days. It never ceased, did it?
And not only that, but he'd been working up to then.
We were averaging at that time about 60-odd funerals a month. We're talking about December 1952, 108, January 104, Feb 102, March 80. 80 funerals, 80 people, 80 families. Some of them were very bitter, naturally. Naturally, without the smog, Mum would have still been alive.
The ministry said a flu epidemic and not the fog had killed the 8,000. Yet official World Health Organization records show that the flu claimed only 457 of the 8,000 who died in the aftermath.
These old people, they'd been through 2 wars. They deserve better than that.
The United States pledged 100,000 free gas masks to protect Londoners from the next fog. But there was a catch. The masks would advertise a new filter for American cigarettes.
The smoke draws free and easy, 'cause the filter's micro-night.
The government rejected the offer.
Damn silly.
Secret tests by gas warfare experts had revealed masks were no match for the fog.
No known mask will protect them from it. Every fog this year, according to the press, will be a killer smog.
Reports now calculated more than 6 million Britons were at risk. Macmillan had to do something.
Ridiculous as it appears, I suggest we form a committee. We cannot do very much, but we can be seen to be very busy. That's half the battle nowadays. There are some short-term things which we can do. We can gain popularity by them, the masks, etc.